everybody's sleepy, but we'll go ahead and start back up. First up, as we all are working to kind of tell our story, working on trying to outreach and find our job seekers and our customers. I'd heard about a presentation by the group up here, Brian in particular, about some of the things that that they were doing and some best practices there. They were able to present at the forum. Unfortunately, I know I wasn't able to attend, and many of y'all hadn't attended. Thought it would be good to come and ask them to come up and present and just share.
Good afternoon. I'm Kendra Ball. I'm with the North Texas Board, and I'm your opening act. I'm the local kid hoping to hit it big and grow up to be these guys. So we're a small board up here in North Texas, based out of Wichita Falls. We cover 11 counties. Y'all probably all know all of that, but just in case. This particular presentation is shifting outreach to meet customers post-pandemic, communications best practices. And while the three that follow me have some very high-tech, innovative solutions to communication in their region, we're going to start in olden day times with us, with our, feet on the ground and, in-person connections and things like that. So my piece is a little bit different than the next three, but it's what we do. All right, so today I'm going to highlight 3 initiatives that we've piloted in 2022. They're a direct result of one of the most important elements of communication, which is listening, and leveraging partnerships to further our communications effort. During the pandemic, it became apparent that we have a technology and infrastructure deficit in our region, which caused us to look for more innovative ways to communicate with the public for workforce support. The first initiative is our partnership with Welcome to Texoma. Not to be confused with the Texoma board. We are also located, although, we'd love to be a part of y'all. We're located along the Texas and Oklahoma border. So if you come to our area, you're going to hear people referring to them as Texomans. We identify as that as well. So this particular partnership that we have is with a local business called Welcome to Texoma. And the proprietor, Sally Gray, she literally delivers welcome baskets to new residents of Wichita Falls and the surrounding area. And we have partnered with her to communicate our mission. And so anytime someone new is coming to town, they're usually looking for job or childcare or other services and resources. And Sally communicates that message to them about what we can do, what we can offer, and that there's no cost involved. One of the unique things about Wichita Falls is that we have an Air Force base, and it's a training base. So there's a lot of transient population, meaning people who come and quickly go because they're there just for training. And then you have the instructors and other service members that work out of there that are here for 2 to 4 years. And all of those bring their families with them. So we have, in recent years, really tried to get better about communicating our services to people who aren't from Texas and may not know about the services that we offer. Sally's been in business for over 20 years. And she has established connections with the military spouse groups at our Air Force Base and realtors. She has really good working relationships with realtors. And so she gets referrals and is able to go to the homes of new people to town and meet them the minute that they come, sometimes before. So that is the first thing. I know I'm shaky, y'all. All right. So anyway, Sally is, she's bridging a gap. We were having a hard time knowing how to reach the people who need us most. We are the best kept secret. Everybody across the state says that. And in Wichita Falls and our surrounding 11 counties, it's the same. And we saw that there was an opportunity there with Sally and the unique service that she provides, where she partners with the realtors and she's doing that legwork for us. So anyway, that is the first one that I wanted to mention. It's kind of unique. And then we're going to shift gears to something else. And I'm trying to hurry because we all only have 10 minutes to talk. So anyway, shifting gears, in our rural communities, I mentioned that technology and infrastructure is a problem. There's a big gap there from some of the bigger regions to some of our rural communities because they don't have access. They just can't get the high-speed internet service. So during the pandemic, we started trying to think of ways that we can connect to people without the face-to-face. And that was extremely difficult to do. And so this year we launched Project Library, and that's where we are establishing a career station within 18 libraries in our 11 county region. And there's some pictures on here. Hopefully you can see them. If they didn't already have furniture, we bought study carrels. So there was some privacy screens, and they could do anything related to job search on those computers. They're fully upgraded. We provided tech support, and we're in the process of finishing up the installation, and we're going to provide training to the library staff so that we have that other resource that can help support the people that come in to use these career stations. They'll also have contact information to our closest of the 4 workforce centers and a schedule of when our mobile unit goes out. So if they do need that face-to-face contact, they know where to get it. But this is a way that daily they have a way closer to them that has access to the high-speed internet, that's free, and that they can come in and do the work they need to be able to get those jobs. And then last but not least, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you need the microphone. We do not pay a fee. We actually have 19 libraries in our 11 counties. Is that right, Lisa? Okay. And there's 2 that are not participating. One, we gave a loose offer to because they're in Wichita Falls and they have a lot of resources. We were kind of wanting to focus more on the rural areas. They did not participate, and we had one other that felt like their technology was fine. And they said, nah, we're good. But all of the other libraries were super excited to have us there. And they're getting the technology and the new pretty shiny things, and they did not require a fee. All right, so this one, I'm going to connect to communication. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
The equipment in the libraries.
We have a grant. We actually won an innovation award at the state conference last year, and that is what is funding the technology. And we wrote that grant award for technology. And so that project, and honestly, it's not costing as much as what we had projected. It's actually really economical. You think 18 times, woohoo, we're way below what our projected budget was. And some of them didn't need study carrels. We got bulk rates on certain things. We just had some things that didn't cost as much as we projected. So really while we did have the special grant that funded it, I really think we could have made it work under, don't tell TWC this. We could have made it work using some of our other funding just based on the low cost. And then the second project that I'm going to talk about a little bit bragging, but I'm going to connect it to communication because it really is. It's making sure that we're, promoting that communication around our region. This is brand new, and it is also using the innovation fund that we received at the state conference. And that is shared workspace. We found out from one of our really energetic and active economic development directors from a really tiny town that, let me go back one, because I don't know these numbers. So the population in her town is 2,931, and in the entire county of Baylor County, 3,560. That's the population. It's a very small area, but she is awesome. And she has a lot of energy. And she started talking about her vision to help people in her town be able to advance their careers. And she had an idea. She said, we've got all of these city spaces that are becoming, derelict or dilapidated, and they're just sitting there empty and ruining just from sitting there. Surely we can do something to use these spaces that we have. She noticed that they didn't have any office space available in her town. They have random buildings. There's a VFW hall that's vacant. They had an old auditorium cafeteria from a leftover school that had been rebuilt, and some other spaces, but nothing that was office spaces that could be rented. And because they're a small town, they have professionals that travel in and provide services like attorney services, probably physician services and things like that travel in, and they don't have a place that they can work from when they're in town. So we are partnering with the city of Seymour. They are handling the infrastructure, taking one of the old buildings and making it usable, adding air conditioning, making sure the plumbing works, making sure the lights are on, cleaning it up, painting it. And we are going to put temporary workstations in that facility, cubicles equipped with computers, cameras, headphones, whatever they need to make a workstation, so that the people in Seymour, Texas of 2,930 people can do remote work from Seymour, Texas. I know some of y'all are familiar, several of you, with the growth in Austin and how the wages in Austin requirements to get people to work there have severely increased. And there's a lot of state agencies, nonprofits, and things like that that are having to look outside of Austin. Sorry to pick on y'all. But anyway, they're having to look outside of Austin for workers. And when I was doing research for this project before we presented it to the city council, the remote jobs that I found listed, minimum $15 an hour. In Seymour, Texas, where your options are to work at Dairy Queen, Allsup's, for the city, the school, $15 an hour, 30 to 32,000 a year, most of the time with benefits. That's huge. So we have a connection in Seymour, a woman who works for one of the contracted call center type providers that offers remote work. And she gave us the statistics. And there is a huge opportunity for remote work jobs with her company. If you go on Indeed, you see there are remote work jobs offered across the state agencies, Texas Workforce Commission. They're starting to hire remote workers within Texas. So there is in Health and Human Services, different agencies are having to do that to go and recruit from other areas. This is going to be huge for this little town. And in a rural area, I mentioned that the county only has 3,000 and something people. People that live out like that are used to driving. So they will be able to recruit not just from Seymour, But they'll be able to recruit from some of their neighboring counties that are within driving distance. And people will be able to come, work from home, remote, and have good paying jobs that are bringing in funding into Seymour, Texas, that they would not have access to otherwise. Instead of it just churning the same funding over and over, they're actually bringing in additional funds to this town. And anyway, so that's one way that we're communicating with our small towns and, kind of getting our boots on the ground and getting out there listening and then trying to provide some solutions. That's what I have, and I'm probably over on time. So any other questions on any of that? Thanks. Yes, that is the projection. We will have some cubicles available. There are also in the space that was chosen by the city. There's about 4 or 5 private offices that can be set up. So we don't anticipate that that's going to be a huge deal. I think that as long as they're not going to be directly connected to each other, they're just using the same internet. They've got fiber internet right outside the door in Seymour, Texas. So they're going to be able to provide that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kendra. We appreciate it. My name is Brian Hernandez. I'm with the Rural Capital Area Board. And basically, I'm going to talk to you guys about collaborating across teams. One of the things we learned really early on during the pandemic was that what's obvious to us may not be obvious to our audience, intended or otherwise. This is kind of reminded me of that when I was thinking about putting things together. This is when we visited Estes Park. And even though the sign is perfect, not all the audience members really understand what's on there. So it's just, it generated the question in my mind about, this is why we need to get all of our team members all together and talk about what it was that we were going to be putting out there. And that really led me to really start thinking more and more about, we can't hope that everyone within our organization understands our outreach, understands what our social media handles are, and that what our messaging is. We have to be very intentional about making sure that they understand that. So that kind of led me to really thinking more about, okay, so how do I really kind of channel that? So based on what my leadership had asked me to do, and Paul, I know you're familiar with this, but you're going to hear me say it again. But a couple of years ago, I used to work in the news business for a long time as a producer and then a digital content manager. And back when I was working in Orlando, Florida, I was sent out to Cape Canaveral Air Force Station and Patrick Air Force Base to basically interview a couple of people there just to get a better sense of how they were transitioning over to prepare for civilian rockets to be sent up. Before, it was only military rockets that were being sent from that base. So I went out there and I met with their chief of PIO, and she took me around. And the one thing she asked me to do every time I met someone on that installation was to ask them what their job was. I thought it was an interesting request, but I followed through just because I was curious myself. I wanted to know what each person's role was. Each person I met, whether it was someone on the flight line or the person driving the car or the maintenance workers or the people on the pad or the people in the control room, every single person I met when I asked them that question, their response was, I launch rockets. That mission integrity was so solid that was the first response they shared with me. And then later they would add some context and say, well, I actually operate this, the gyros that actually feed and help make our rockets fly straight. But my job is to launch rockets. And that had me really questioning about, do all of our team members throughout our board staff, our contractors, our state employees within our workforce centers, VR staff, things of that sort, do they know, or are they all on the same page with us and making sure that we have a consistent message out there, our branding? So that led me to want to create some communication meetings. So basically what we did was we started up a communication meeting on Mondays at 2 p.m. and anyone's welcome to join us if you'd like to. But basically we invited a lot of our department heads and we kind of lead off with our board updates, project updates, upcoming event listings, and then we do a round robin and basically all of us contribute. I'm talking about VR heads, childcare, Pretty much every single department head we have within the organization, board staff. We invite board members, although they have not taken part. But basically what we're able to do is all get on the same page, all talk about our outreach, all talk about our goals, all talk about things we're pulling in from the field, what we're learning from our audiences, what our customers are telling us in surveys and reviews. And what that's leading us to is an opportunity to debrief on our major efforts and our major campaigns, talk about metrics, talk about what we learned from that and how we can improve upon it moving forward. Also, what it allows us to do is really connect with what's happening at the state level. So whenever TWC has an event or VR or any of our different partners, Texas Veterans Commission, whatever they're up to, we can actually connect with them and make sure that we're moving in the same direction and that we're promoting them and cross-promoting us. The other thing as well is that we're actually generating a lot of ideas. And what's fun about this is that we've been able to really do a lot of great things throughout the year for different types of national campaigns. So think National Disability Awareness Month, which is in October, National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And what our team was able to do is actually host a series of webinars every year now that stemmed from these discussions. And later on, I'm going to talk a little bit more about another project idea that popped up about really meeting the needs of employers when they really connected with us during the pandemic and what they needed. But I will say, I learned a lot. And I will say now, hopefully, whenever you ask a member of our team what their job is, hopefully they'll say it as basically, we develop talent for employers by developing the talent of our workforce. So basically, that's pretty much how we're kind of synthesizing it there. A little longer, but I will say I'm really proud. I was able to actually, I feel like I've earned the challenge coin that they gave me when I ran around and met everybody and met the colonel that was in charge of the base. And really, that really kind of gave me an opportunity to kind of take all that learning and kind of put it forth through these communication meetings. And as I mentioned before about kind of transitioning over, one of the biggest things that we learned when we really started to talk to employers was that they had a sense of what they did, but in a lot of ways, and I'm sure you're familiar with this as well, it didn't translate well with their customer base or even with their staff in a lot of ways. And kind of an example of that, something fun I tried to pull up, but it's this idea that employers may have an impression of who they are, and they may be trying to communicate a certain way, but their audience may be seeing it from a completely different angle, and even their staff as well. So one of the things we wanted to do kind of moving forward was really just remind everyone, including our employers, that and this is great. And this is everything we learned. Remember last summer at the retreat down in San Antonio was learning all about storytelling and really doubling down in our storytelling efforts and making sure that we are practicing the hero's journey in all the different communications we're putting out there, especially when we're talking about employers. So what we had learned during the pandemic was that the employers, sure, they were putting out a lot of ads, even doing some of their own videos, but a lot of them really weren't connecting with their audiences because they were not following this basically this paradigm, this idea of actually following a story that's believable, that's authentic, that people can connect with. And as we learned last summer in the ED retreat, when they were really educating us about storytelling, was that really you can just kind of use this framework of kind of like, just think of the Star Wars movie, even the first one, the New Hope, or I guess episode 4, whatever that is. But really thinking about, Luke and his, lowly ways living out in the desert, not really having a sense of who he is or what his purpose was. And really he feels this calling, ends up on this journey, and he attaches himself to someone wise that kind of helps guide him and provides him with more insights. And he has to face his villains and face, questions he has and doubts about himself. But ultimately he, collaborates with other people and is on this journey that he probably didn't know before. And he's gaining more and more training. And as he's moving forward, now he's able to actually apply that training in new ways and maybe blow up a Death Star. You never know. Some people can do that. But in the end, basically, he emerges the hero, and he's basically come back with all this learning. He's a completely new person. And really the reward for him, it wasn't necessarily the medal on his chest, because obviously Chewbacca didn't get one, and that was pretty sad. We're all depressed about that. But really it was about that entire journey and his own personal enrichment. And now, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he's able to self-actualize, because now he's at a point now he can really invest in himself. So really just kind of give you an idea of really what the employers were telling us was that, they were looking to share their own narrative, and that's what we were encouraging to do. But more importantly, we wanted them to really speak to their values, speak to their culture, speak to, what it was they needed within their organization and what their goals were. And then also really talk about, the types of candidates they wanted to interview and the types of candidates they wanted to join their teams. And when we really connected with them, we realized that, they could do this a lot on their own. And I encourage you to do that with employers. If they'd like to share their own video, it's definitely great. Or you can just go out there with your team, use your existing camera equipment, or if you don't have one, use a phone. Pretty much every phone right now shoots in 4K quality. As long as you can hold it still and horizontal, you can usually get a pretty good video. And really, or you can even do it as we've done before, whenever we're not able to visit an employer, do it, host a meeting through Zoom or Microsoft Teams and record it. And then just kind of edit it a little bit. And there's a lot of different free editing programs I can steer you guys to, or really discounted. And, what we're able to do with this is help employers really share a little bit more than they would through a typical ad found on like Work in Texas or something along those lines. What this does, and you'll be able to, we were going to run some videos, but I don't want to take too much time, but you can check them out on our website. This gives employers really a lot of control over how they're promoting their opportunities and their positions. And it gives us an opportunity to really show our relationship with that employer. And we can put it out on all of our channels and share it with all of our networks. And I'm happy to say we had one employer. So Horseshoe Bay Resort is a beautiful place out there near Marble Falls. And before the pandemic, they had, they were still struggling with staff. Obviously, it's a hotel. But they came to us during the pandemic and they really said, they just were not able to recruit. They just had no leads at all. And working with our business services team and working with our leadership, and we ended up doing a great video with them. One of the things that they learned was that, they needed to address all of the different barriers to success that the workforce and the community were facing. So challenges with housing, challenges with health, with childcare, and also challenges with really some, a growth pattern within their organization. So before the pandemic, they didn't have either of those. After the pandemic, after consulting with us, and we were able to highlight in a video, they now offer housing for their staff. They now are building a childcare facility on premises, and they now have, thanks to our help as well, really, really strong and visual pathways to success for their staff that offer a lot of upskill training, and we're able to support them as well through different grants in doing that. And those are the stories that we're sharing out, and those are the stories we're able to actually put out there in video and also through other means as well. So I just want to encourage your teams. Don't necessarily let the lack of resources stop you from doing videos like this. I can help you as well, kind of guide you through if we're really looking for some kind of template. But just remember that hero's journey and use your available equipment, phones or otherwise, to actually create some of these videos, and then just put them out there, put them on your website, put them on social media. And I'm telling you, it's going to help in more ways than just a Work in Texas listing will do. So if anybody has any questions. All right, I did my job.
Brian, I have a comment. I don't know if you can hear me.
Go ahead, Bianca.
I would imagine that reaching out to these employers and giving them a platform to tell their story actually opens up the awareness of business services with workforce, and them reaching out to you to utilize workforce solutions and continue that relationship.
Actually, yeah. And in all these situations, actually, these relationships start with our business services teams.
Okay.
And through that meeting, that communications meeting, they're able to actually advise us, hey, we've got 2 employers who are interested in doing spotlights. Let's put them on the production schedule and start working with them to get these done. And
Cool.
what's great about that is we're turning them into advocates. So they can go ahead and advise other employers and other staff members as well about the services that we have to offer.
Very cool. I love it. I'm going to have to take a page off your book for that, Fran. I'm going to steal your idea. So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Bianca Cervantes. I'm the communications director over at Workforce Solutions, Borderplex, and I'm accompanied by our fearless leader, Leila Melendez, who's sitting right next to Brian. I see her in a really tiny little box. And we have a couple of things that we'd like to talk to you about today in terms of how we're meeting customers where they are. And I wanted to start off with the next force, which is a youth career opportunity that kind of stemmed from a storytelling project that we did last year. So I'm going to give Leila an opportunity to speak a little bit on this current story.
So we've OSY, our Opportunity Youth, is a big urgency for us, especially in El Paso. We've got our funds, but we're also partnering with the city, which got some money from the Aspen Institute. There's been a really big focus on Opportunity Youth. But one of the things that we did last year is, before we put up a whole bunch of just solutions and came up with a whole bunch of projects, is we started out with a listening session. We partnered with our local mental health agency, and they hosted listening sessions for some of our youth to hear, and this was around this time last year, where are they here? Where are they physically in their community? How do we find them? What do they want? What are they thinking, before we roll out with some answers or some programs for them? And we just found that they are ready to talk. Give a kid a mic and they'll talk. And that's what we are finding that they want the most. That is how we are engaging them. We're not giving them something to do. We're giving them a platform. And so one of the things that we've done is given them this platform, and we're listening to them, and we're giving them this space to share with us that they have no idea what they want to do, but they want to participate, and they're curious. They want to interact, and while they are figuring themselves out. So we've named this group our next force. Because they're the next generation of our workforce. So we've labeled this, we've branded this, and this is who is like, they represent and they own this part of workforce solutions. So we actually OS-wide or enrolled two youth, Judith and Keon, and they are working with Bianca. They are interning with Bianca. They are now enrolled in post-secondary, one at community college and one at the university. But we brought them on over the summer, and they've started interning with Bianca to support and to help her in her communications department. And that's where the fields that they're going into. So they are, they're learning workforce development, they're learning the business, if you will, and also going on their pathway into here. And they're learning these soft skills. This is their first job. And, we're giving them things to do, but then there's also things that Bianca's having to, like, hey, let me bring you in here. You can't do this. You can't do that. You got to show up every day. Those skills as an employer, and we are their first employer. So they're learning all of those skills that we and as other employers to do. And then they're also taking part in those LinkedIn classes and the metrics classes. Those are things that we're telling them, you need to spend. Here's a program for you, a curriculum for this next week. Yes, you're going to do some of the fun stuff with us, but you also need to get on this LinkedIn class or this metrics class, so that we are guiding them along the way. So, and then they are that ambassador, because their peers will not listen to us, but they will listen to them. So they are the ambassadors to other Opportunity Youth as well. They're giving us the street cred that we're looking for with these other Opportunity Youth. So it's been a pretty great project so far.
So
Go ahead.
we'll go ahead and go into some of the storytelling innovations, and these are platforms that we've explored that are atypical. Obviously, we do go into a lot of the traditional marketing, traditional outreach, public relations, and that sort. But we decided in 2020 that we wanted to do a podcast. So the first year you may not have heard too much about it, because we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know the first thing about equipment. We didn't know the first thing about how to even manage a podcast, but we decided we would do one in-house and took the first year as a rehearsal opportunity. I will tell you that there was some hesitation, because there was no knowledge of how we're really going to operate this. And there was one of the hosts that we thought was super valuable because of her data mining abilities, but was a little hesitant. And now at this point, after 2 years, 2 seasons, this is one of her favorite things to do. So she, after some practice, after some warming up and sitting in front of a mic, we have some very, very seasoned hosts on the Workforce Situation Room who I share a seat with Leila, Alma Aranda, Karina Castillo, who the Workforce Development Director and the Data Research Analyst. And the reason that I think that this has been such a beneficial platform outside of opening up to the general public is that it's lent a lot to the WSB culture, where we get to sit down on a monthly basis and discuss a topic that we're really passionate about in full raw form. We just discuss a situation that we know is getting in the way, is an obstacle in the workforce and the work that we do in our mission. And it's allowing us to sit there and cut it up and dissect it and analyze it and put in our own personal stakes, our own passions, and our own opinions about it. And so while that happens, there's this fusion, there's this magic between everybody that starts to create, aside from authenticity for our listeners, which is why I believe that this podcast has become successful, is that allows in raw form for a solution to emerge. And at that point, we've had episodes where we talk about a situation, whether it's women's equity, whether it's outreach to youth, whether it's wage wars, we start talking and these solutions start to come up. And the reason, the inspiration of this podcast was actually that very thing, where because of COVID, during the time that we were all working from home and remotely, we had to sit in a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and we had to collaborate constantly in that realm. And I started listening closely to these conversations and just hearing the passion, hearing the sometimes the anger, sometimes the rage, whatever it was that was coming up from the COVID issues. I was starting to hear that raw emotion, and then to suddenly hear a solution pop up from all of that was super inspiring. And I thought, this needs to be recorded. This needs to be listened to. And like Brian, I was formerly in news, and this is the kind of stuff that gets attention. So thankfully, Leila trusted the communications department to embark on a podcast platform. And not only has it cultivated this culture and this trust foundation within the leadership and the entire staff overall, it's also starting to trickle out and network into the general public and for our stakeholders, businesses that we work with primarily. And recently, we have, after TAWB this past year, we have started to invite guests to speak with us because we're a lot more confident than we were the first season. And what we've caught on to this is that everybody has a very similar mission in workforce development or economic development, and there is power in numbers. If one entity in Texas has the same mission as another entity in Indiana, and we have connections and we have partnerships and networks, and we have a conversation in that realm of passion and solutions development, we begin to see connections and we start creating a synergy across the country with these types of solutions. So it's good energy, it's good collaboration, good networking, and it brings in a whole new realm of idea sharing, of collaboration, and a much wider network. So we've been able to use this as a tool for not just culture development within staff and not just solutions development within ourselves and our programming, but it is also an amazing opportunity to connect with new people. And we go to these conferences now and it's like, hey, do you want to be a host on do you want to guest on our podcast? And people like it. So we maintain, it's almost like we thicken that networking opportunity, that bridge to be able to connect with these people. So it's been extremely beneficial in ways that we hadn't even expected. What's also great about this is when you have 45 minutes to 50 minutes of audio content, and now we're starting to do video content as well, you can repurpose this 50-minute piece into 10 other mini pieces that can be fleshed out into your social media, and you're essentially developing content from one piece of content. So it's really effective when it comes to engagement with your general public as well. So listen to our podcast, subscribe, whether you are on Spotify, Apple, Pandora. We're on various platforms. Just look up the Workforce Situation Room and rate us a 5, please. Another innovative idea that came up. Typically, this was actually born as almost a PowerPoint how-to is how the original request came in, because we had been doing those during COVID, since there wasn't a lot of opportunity to go out into the public. This stemmed from Grind Talk, which is the Career Outreach Navigator program that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, funded by TANF. And essentially, the career outreach specialists would go to different classrooms and talk about career readiness, different types of skills, and they had that in-person contact. Well, when COVID came around, there wasn't much of an opportunity to do that. So what was happening is that these presentations that were done in person were then converted to a PowerPoint with a voiceover and a video, and sometimes live on Zoom. So towards the end of last fall, right around fall of last year, there was another request. Hey, Bianca, we need to freshen up our videos. Can your communications department help us out with something with resume preparation, job skills, interview coaching, soft skills, things like that? Can you create some videos for us? And it's like, okay. And then I thought, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, that youth is one of the most difficult populations to connect with. No matter how cool that we think we were in high school, we're not able to get through as well as we'd hope with youth. And it's been one of the challenging populations for us as well. So when I got this request, we thought we could go the route that, of just repurposing these PowerPoint presentations and telling kids how to tie a tie, or how to prepare their resume, or how to speak on an interview. But something just didn't feel right in the gut about it, because I thought, with all the effort that we're going to put into this, how many people are actually going to watch it, or how beneficial will it be? So we thought about some different ideas. Our first scripts were a little bit cooler in the sense that they were still how-tos, but they still just had that boringness to them that my niece personally didn't find interesting, who was 15 at the time. So we ripped those scripts and we decided, let's create a story arch that's relatable, rather than just do a how-to. And something that kids were connecting to back then, and as COVID started to kind of open the curtains a little bit for us, is everybody was binging, and a lot Netflix binging, Amazon binging. So we decided to create a series of sorts. And we thought we had the best story ideas, and thankfully we had some connections with different districts that we had worked with in the past. And so we brought in 3 high schools. One was a theater classroom, one was a journalism classroom with media production abilities, and one was a marketing classroom. And it was an amazing connection, because we had already worked with the journalism doing Workforce Wednesday, which is our weekly video series. We had already worked with the marketing team, not because we had worked with the students, but the teacher of the marketing class was actually the original Grind Talk program developer. So she had done so well in her presentations that she was poached by one of the high schools. So she was actually on board. And then we had a close colleague that ran the theater department at one of the other high schools. So we combined all those teams, and we said, here are some really cool storylines that we're going to write scripts for, and we're going to do 6 episodes. And in these episodes, we'll tell a story and we'll integrate the skills development and all of the principles of career outreach. And the first go, they didn't like any of our scripts. They rolled their eyes. They didn't think anything that we did was storytelling worthy or anything that they would end up watching. And thankfully, they advised us, kind of like what Leila mentioned earlier. They're telling us how to communicate with youth, which is why they've been such an integral part of our communications department for the past couple of years. But they helped us with screenwriting. They definitely redlined all of our dialogue and fixed that. And from there, we produced the first month of school last year. Was back-to-back production days in the high school. And all of these teachers used this project as their first 6 weeks or their first sessions grade project. So all their involvement was actually school related, and the districts were graceful enough to allow us to do production. We brought in a professional production team, and we ended up creating a really cool series that we push on YouTube that now we're using this tool to take to the different schools, the different teachers, where they can actually use this series, 6 episodes, where we have a storyline, but then at the end, it wraps up with the soft skills, the lessons that each character learned. And we also developed a website where each episode has a toolkit of what these teachers can use. So there's actually gradable dittos, gradable story prompts, writing prompts, and there's an entire kit for a teacher to be able to use for grades that our marketing teacher, April Hall, who originated the Grind Talk program, developed for us as a teacher. So it ended up being an extremely all-immersive experience, not just for us and discovering that youth was the key to be able to talk to youth and to communicate and connect with youth, but also for the youth themselves. The students that were involved learned firsthand experience in not just producing a series with the elements of storytelling, production, marketing, and outreach, but they also learned in developing the storyline and helping us write the scripts, just how important it is to have these soft skills that we talked about. So it was a home run for us that we hadn't anticipated, and we're extremely happy that it evolved the way it did, and that we plan on continuing it. And Keon and Judith, both the 2 comms interns that are currently working with me, were actually involved in producing this series as well. So it's come full circle, and we hope to continue it. But we also encourage that type of exploration and utilizing youth to help the youth for soft skills and for career preparedness. And we'll go ahead and play the trailer here just to give you an idea of what that series sounded like.
You need to work on this, dude. You need to work on this. No more flunking classes, no more reject interviews. It's not supposed to be like this. We need to talk.
We are really running low on funds right now.
I just have a ton of things going on. Please don't take that personally.
There you go again. Doodling isn't going to pay the bills. Neither is the periodic table.
Is that what this is? You're paying bills? You know what happens to neglected potential? Nothing happens. And you short yourself.
So that was Rise and Grind. They came up with the name too. Does anyone have any questions? And if so, if Brian, you can repeat them on your mic, because I don't know that we're able to hear anything.
Let's no questions at this
Okay.
point. Thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent, Bianca. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's always so inspiring to see the young people doing good work, doing good things, and furthering the mission. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Michelle Ramirez Castro. My title is Strategic Planning Manager for the Gulf Coast Workforce Board. But since the pandemic, I have really spent most of my energy serving as the spokesperson for Workforce Solutions Gulf Coast. What you've heard this afternoon so far is several different successful approaches, each that have yielded good results in different ways for different audiences. And since no 2 workforce regions are alike, it makes absolute sense that we all have different approaches. And in marketing communications, the current trend characterizes media activities into 4 buckets: paid, earned, shared, and owned. This is referred to as the peso model. And no, it doesn't mean that it's cheap. But for those of us that have been around a while, really what we're talking about is advertising, publicity, social media, and then everything else that you create for yourself. And in terms of making decisions, as workforce boards, paid advertising is mostly not an option for us. On the other hand, social media is free and quote unquote, anyone can do it. But we all know that it takes time, experience, and a dedicated effort to build up that following. And for us in Houston, with a market that has 7 million individuals as prospective stakeholders, broad reach is critical for us. So currently, Our social media following stands at roughly 19,000 individuals, which is respectable by comparison, but minuscule relative to that adult population. Now, television, on the other hand, especially combined with social, reaches a much larger and broader audience. So over the last 2.5 years, TV has helped us achieve 225 million impressions with an earned media value of almost $32 million. Now, it wasn't always this way. Pre-pandemic, we were happy to get a quote once a month in the Houston Chronicle around the monthly jobs report, and then in the fall to get some coverage around hiring right away and you. But then that pandemic put us into crisis mode. And with everything shutting down and the backlog of unemployment claims, those news crews were doing their stand-ups from the parking lot of our empty offices. So we knew that we had to do something. Next slide, please. But today, the willingness to work with those reporters, the willingness to work with those media outlets, giving them good, clear, local information has translated into 4 standing weekly TV segments in both English and Spanish. This allows Workforce Solutions to reach 282,000 individuals each week with the messages that we choose. Again, comparing that to our social media, which we are growing our social media, but even with all that effort, we're really only reaching an audience of maybe 19,000 individuals. So that reach and the broadness of that audience is really strong for us. So on Mondays, we have a regular segment on Univision on their midday news program. They also stream that live on Facebook to their 1 million followers. That's one way that we've been increasing our following. On Thursdays, we have a live stream with our ABC affiliate, which is ABC 13, and that gives us the opportunity to also pitch story ideas. So then again, we're able to influence what the news is showing, the stories that they're telling as it relates to jobs, to careers, and the economy. Then on Friday morning at 6:15, we have a standing segment on Local Fox where they literally email us once a week and say, what are you talking about? So once again, we're able to reach that large, broad audience with the message that Workforce Solutions chooses. And then starting this Saturday, we're adding our 4th partnership, which is with Quest Texas 55. Now, Quest Texas 55 is really exciting for us because this is our latest media innovation. We leveraged our relationship with KHOU TV, which is the CBS affiliate and owned by Tegna, which is a large media company. And they are giving us 30 minutes of free air time once a week to deliver a talk show that is all about jobs. So this show premieres this Saturday, August the 6th at 3 p.m. on the KHOU sister station, which is Quest Texas 55. And while that may not be a primetime slot, it really doesn't matter because we are gaining the credibility of being the people that actually have a TV show that is professionally produced and aired on a broadcast station. And really, even more importantly, we retain the rights to all of that content, meaning that after that initial broadcast run, we can give permission to all of our local governments, the school districts, the community colleges, and everybody else who has those public access channels, everybody else who has their own internal television channels. And then we can use portions of the show as content for our social media. Again, echoing what Bianca had already said, that you take it and then repurpose it. So not only can we use it on our social media channels, but we also have those TV monitors in our offices so that once again, we are delivering those messages and making the most out of our investment. So even things like our teachers will be able to stream that 30-minute show right straight off of our YouTube channel. So I'm going to pause here for a second to let you see a quick 30-second promotional video of this show.
Hello, and welcome to Your Career, Your Choice, powered by Workforce Solutions. I'm Caitlin Espinosa. Thank you so much for being here today. Can't wait to dive into the world of online job searching.
Think about the jobs in our market, generally about 42% require more than a high school diploma, but less than a 4-year degree. That's our sweet spot.
Part of studying human behavior in the workplace is understanding what are humans' traits, what are their characteristics, and what are their strengths.
So again, the intention with Your Career, Your Choice was to educate and inform. We're not selling. That's really the key to how we are able to achieve and sustain these partnerships, is that we are educating and informing the viewers that that station wants to keep enthralled. Through that 13-week season, we're using about 22 of our Workforce Solutions team members as our Workforce Solutions experts. So it's building that excitement and enthusiasm that our staff needs, because they have been through so much during the pandemic as well. We're offering a platform for our employers, and that is a great way, especially right now that everybody is having difficulties recruiting. It gives them additional exposure, and again, gives us credibility in terms of who is the best person to say, give you the advice about landing that job that you want, other than the people that are actually making decisions. And we're even able to showcase our community partners. So that includes our internal partners, TVC, VRS, et cetera. But we're also able to include our community colleges, all of the United Way agencies that offer workforce services, organizations like Dress for Success and Career Gear, and then places that have less awareness, like Volunteers of America, Bridge Year, and even kind of Combined Arms. These are local organizations that would never have the opportunity or the tools to be able to get the kind of exposure that we can provide to them. So in addition to reach, positive media coverage allows us to really build that credibility with those employers, with our customers, with our staff, and with our local elected officials. And trust me when I tell you that our board members really love this. So with time, you go from being a reliable source to actually being a partner that gets to influence that message. You know, we all talk about, you know, we don't like what we hear on the news, so you tune it out. Well, this is the way, this is our way to be able to influence what people are hearing, what stories are being told. And so I know we're running out of time, but what I really want to do is share with you this story that ran on EDC 13 just before we took our summer break. And again, these stories, every time one of these stories airs on the 6 p.m. newscast, we're reaching about 175,000 viewers. And then we're able to repackage it on social media to, again, leverage that investment. So I'm going to pause here so you can see this amazing story that talks about adult education, apprenticeships, and this thing that we called IETs, integrated education and training. But notice, none of those words are ever heard. Brian, if you'll run the video.
Welcome back. For more than 2 years, ABC 13's weekly Who's Hiring Job Fairs have helped hundreds of people find work right here in our community.
Yeah, they really have. And we also feature some programs where you can earn while you learn. We showcased one a year ago. Afterwards, a father with a young child went from high school dropout to preparing to buy his first home. Here's ABC 13's Nick Notario.
With each strike, Rolando Cardona is piecing his life together.
The best thing to do is to look forward, never look back. You know, if you see an opportunity, take it and put it to the best use.
Words that weren't always easy to live by. Cardona dropped out of high school and had another unexpected surprise.
Whenever my wife got pregnant, I had to step it up a notch.
Cardona's life turned around after he got in touch with Workforce Solutions.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our weekly virtual job fair.
An agency ABC 13 has partnered with for more than 2 years to help Houstonians find work. One of the places we highlighted was Apache. a place Cardona learned about after he reached out.
They connected with me real quick. They talked to me about different opportunities for me and stuff like that. And it all worked out very great.
Cardona got his GED. He also got into Apache's apprenticeship program.
I was excited. I was happy and ready to come out here and show them what I can do.
Candidates take a 2-week course to learn trade skills, including scaffolding, insulation, and painting. Afterwards, they're placed with professionals. Instead of loans, the students are paid to learn crafts.
Some of them are floundering and may not know what fields to get into, and to have a paved road into a profession, really, it's a career-long opportunity. It's awesome to see.
Apache has locations across the Houston area and country.
We certainly reach out to high schools and that kind of age demographic, but it is for anyone at any point in their career. If you're looking to make a change and maybe do something a little bit different, that opportunity is there.
Apache isn't the only Earn While You Learn program. If you want to learn more, Workforce Solutions is a place you can start. During our 2-year weekly event, more than 5,300 have applied, nearly 900 found jobs, and more than 300 have received resume assistance.
It's an MVP program, you know, it's very helpful, very, very helpful. It can help out millions of people, you know.
A first step that got Cardona on the right path, and in a matter of months has completely changed his life.
I'm actually buying a home now, and I'm just only 21 years old, you know, so it's very great. It's going great. I got my cars, taking care of my family. My family's well fed.
A turnaround that gets better with each strike after Cardona took that initial step. Nick Notario, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
It's an MVP program that is an incredible endorsement of the work that our teams do all across the state every single day. I know we're out of time, but I'm going to close by saying that what you've seen today is that no two workforce regions are the same. Each of our workforce boards is structured differently. So your communication and outreach activities shouldn't be exactly like anybody else's. They don't have to be exactly like what you've seen today. I encourage you to start by identifying your business goals and genuinely articulating your priorities. As workforce boards, we have varied and multiple stakeholder audiences. You don't have to do everything, but you do have to make decisions on where you want to invest. And you need to be able to allocate the resources to achieve those priorities. And then just one last note, please don't fall prey to novelty or the fear of missing out, that FOMO, right? That somebody's doing this, so you need to be doing that as well to keep up. Be smart about your decisions, be smart about your investments, and own that your market is yours. Your workforce region is yours. That's the entire intent of the legislation as it is, to make local decisions. So what works for us may not necessarily work for you, but I hope that by seeing all of the different approaches, you've been inspired to see what's possible, and you have access to all of us. We're all ready to offer our experience, our advice, our guidance, and we are communicators. So we love talking to each other. Never hesitate to reach out to any one of us about anything that you've seen here today. I thank you for your time and attention.
Great, thank you. And if there's any lasting message I'll share as well is I got this a long time ago from an undergraduate professor who basically told me you cannot not communicate. Even silence sends a message. So be just very intentional about what you guys are putting out there because your audience will generate a narrative, whether it's the one you intend or not. So thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, ladies.
We all work toward telling our story. Thank you.
Thank you.